Allegations tonight that a San Diego transit agency cooperated with immigration officials during a recent raid.
It will give them a sense of security, knowing their personal belongings are in a safe place.
Homeless people in San Diego will soon have a place to leave their belongings, but not everyone is happy about the city council's decision. And homeless San Diegans find friendship and hope through song. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A local community group is alleging the North County Transit District colluded with Immigration and Customs Enforcement on an operation leading to the arrest of more than 100 people. But the Transit District denies any knowledge of the operation. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
I've been on the Sprinter, and it was unusual for me to see two charter buses in the back.
Arturo Venegas says he was tipped off last week that ICE may be operating out of a parking lot at the Escondido Transit Center. The North County Transit District uses the space for its buses and trains.
There was two charter buses, and there was a smaller bus. So I recorded one of the ICE agents take someone from the smaller bus to the bigger charter buses.
ICE says 115 people were recently arrested in San Diego and Imperial counties for violating federal immigration laws. A rally was held at the Escondido Transit Center Wednesday, protesting the recent operation and alleging collusion between ICE and the North County Transit District.
One of the questions that we're looking at, kind of exploring a bit more, is how these kinds of decisions are being made through the North County Transit District Board, how ICE and Homeland Security is coming in to solicit support from these different local entities.
A North County Transit District spokeswoman says their security staff had no knowledge of the ICE operation and were not contacted by ICE to use NCTD property. In a statement to KPBS, ICE confirmed that the buses in these photos were in fact theirs and that ICE vehicles were in the area during the time of the operation. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Today, a judge apologized to the family of a 2-year-old boy in a San Diego cold case as she dismissed a murder charge against Tyree Jones. He was accused in the 2003 death of his stepson, Jahi Turner. Superior Court Judge Joan Weber says the fact that Jahi Turner's body was never found and the delay in bringing the case to trial makes it unlikely any future jury could convict Jones of murder. Last Friday, a jury was unable to reach a verdict in the case.
I want everyone in this courtroom to know that it saddens me to my core to say this. I would want nothing more for Jahi and his family, particularly his wonderful mother, Tamika, than a definitive answer as to what happened to him that week of April 2002. Tragically, the criminal justice system is not always equipped to provide an answer.
In 2002, Jones was watching the boy while his mother was deployed. The defendant was charged with murder in 2016. Judge Weber says Jones lied repeatedly during the investigation, but that's not enough to warrant another trial. A temporary yet controversial storage facility for homeless people in San Diego got a green light from the city council. Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more.
Mayor Kevin Faulkner told the council before their vote that the facility will make it easier for homeless individuals to go to work, apply for jobs, or access social services without lugging their belongings around with them.
It will give them a sense of security, knowing their personal belongings are in a safe place. And this is a critical portion of our push to connect, support, and house homeless individuals.
The facility is in Logan Heights, and many neighbors spoke against the location, fearing it would bring in drug use and litter, and saying it's too close to a Catholic school. City Councilman David Alvarez, whose district includes the neighborhood, cast the only vote against the plans.
Our voice has been woefully ignored, and I want all the speakers here to remember that you have been treated unfairly in this process. There's no question about that. We would not do this in any other community in San Diego. Absolutely not.
The plans went through some last-minute changes by the council. Its capacity is capped at 500 storage containers instead of 1,000, and its opening was pushed back to mid-June, after the end of the current school year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Coronado takes issue with one of the latest bicycle sharing trends. The city council is in discussions about what to do about dockless bikes, such as Lime Bike. The city manager presented a report saying these bikes are popping up all over, often in clusters, blocking walkways for days. He points out dockless bike companies, including Lime Bike, have requested commercial permits to operate in Coronado, but have been denied. The city attorney says their presence violates the law.
I had enumerated the variety of Muni Code violations that are being violated when they're operating in the city without the necessary permits. In fact, I would even put out there that it is constituting a public nuisance because blocking pedestrian traffic, leaving in the public right-of-way, it causes a public safety hazard that needs to be abated.
The city manager recommends a system where police leave paper notices on the bikes, giving the companies 2 hours to retrieve the bikes or risk a $45 fine. The former Navy mayor of San Diego is asking top brass at Camp Pendleton to consider accepting the spent fuel from San Onofre. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says retired Admiral Lynn Herring believes the risk of storing the nuclear waste next to the ocean has not been correctly assessed.
Herring is part of a private group of scientists and nuclear experts who are taking action on San Onofre. They want to stop San Onofre's radioactive spent fuel rods from being moved in giant canisters to be buried in concrete bunkers right next to the beach, 60 miles north of downtown San Diego. Herring says the group's written to the current head of Marine Corps Installations West to consider moving the material across to the east side of Interstate 5, where it could be stored on a mesa well above the beach.
Because of the fact that as sea level rises, the containers are subjected to elements that they simply are not designed to handle. And that in itself should be a significant risk that is both a concern to the citizenry, but also, I believe, to the Marine Corps and the Department of Defense, recognizing that should there be a breach, that Pendleton would basically be useless. The area itself would be contaminated. God only knows how far the contamination containment area might be or what the impacts might be to national security. I think the risks are significantly greater than we should have to endure.
Herring says the Marine Corps has responded that they cannot consider moving the waste to higher ground because the decision to store the waste on site was approved by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. He says his group's next step will be to approach the Pentagon. Herring wants to educate neighboring cities like San Diego to support their effort. Edison's Community Engagement Panel meets Thursday night in Laguna Hills to give an update on nuclear waste storage. In the meantime, the spent fuel continues to be moved to the bunker by the beach. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
San Diego Assemblywoman Toni Atkins makes history today, becoming the first woman and first openly gay leader of the state Senate. Atkins was sworn in as Senate Pro Tem today, taking the gavel from Kevin De Leon.
It is the first time, and it's about time. Now, to be honest with you, I came to the Senate to make progress, not history. But if I'm touching any part of the sky today, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of couriers of courage, individuals who refuse to accept closed doors, hidden closets, or glass ceilings.
Atkins is also the first Californian in more than 100 years to serve as leader of both the Assembly and the Senate during her political career. Now that Congressman Darrell Issa is officially not running for re-election, what will he do with the more than $1 million he has collected from donors? iNews Source reporter Jill Castellano reports.
Republican Darrell Issa of Vista hasn't said publicly what he'll do with his leftover campaign funds, and his office didn't respond to requests for comment from iNews Source. But federal election laws spell out his options. They include giving the money to charity, contributing as much as he wants to a political party, or donating up to $2,000 to a candidate for federal office. He can also donate to state and local candidates. And what can't he do with the money? Spend it on personal expenses like groceries, clothes, or rent. But no law says Issa has to do anything with the money. He could just leave it in the bank. Then someday, if he does decide to run for office again, Issa could transfer the donations to that campaign. His next finance report is due in April. We should learn more about his plans then. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Jill Castellano.
iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. Over the last few years, San Diego's medical community has made a concerted effort to get more people screened for colorectal cancer. The disease is the second leading cause of cancer deaths, and as KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg explains, it's the only type of cancer doctors can prevent by screening.
Walter Roussel had always been in good health, so he wasn't expecting anything unusual when he had a routine colonoscopy about 6 years ago.
I have never had any disease before, so it was kind of a shock to find out that you have something, and it wasn't just like a polyp that could be taken out. This was something that had went a little further than that.
Roussel was diagnosed with stage 3 colorectal cancer. He couldn't believe it.
I had no symptoms. So that's what made it a little more difficult for me.
Dr. Daniel Anderson is a gastroenterologist at Kaiser Permanente. The colonoscope is the tool he uses to examine the inside of the colon. Anderson explains during a colonoscopy, he's looking for small polyps.
Most colon cancers start from polyps. Most polyps won't become colon cancer, but we take them all out, especially the big ones, the one over a centimeter, have about a 10% chance to go to colon cancer in 10 years.
Anderson has been leading efforts to get more San Diegans screened for colorectal cancer. The initiative is starting to pay off. On average, between 70 and 80% of San Diegans insured through commercial plans or Medicare are getting screened. Anderson says because of that high screening rate, more people in San Diego County are getting diagnosed when their cancer is at an early stage.
As a result, in San Diego County, you're less likely to get colon cancer because of the polyps that are removed through the screening process, and you're also less likely to die of colon cancer than the rest of California.
According to the Cancer Registry of California, the incidence of colorectal cancer in San Diego County declined by 10% between 2010 and 2014, and the mortality rate declined by 14%. However, the colorectal cancer screening rate among San Diegans who get their care in community clinics is only 46%. Clinics are using a variety of methods to increase that rate.
And we did give her colon cancer screening cards, so we should see if she's turned those in yet. They haven't been submitted yet. For our next patient as well, he's due for the colon cancer screening.
At the Imperial Beach Health Center, Medical Director Eric Loita goes over a list of patients who are waiting to be seen. For each patient, Dr. Loita checks to see if they've had their colorectal cancer screening. Loita and his staff also send text messages to patients,
where we send the messages educating them about colon cancer screening itself, colon cancer, the different methods of screening. So it takes some of the fear away from the patients so they know what they're getting involved with and how easy the screening is to do.
It turns out colonoscopies aren't the only way to screen for colorectal cancer. There's also something called a FIT test that screens for hidden blood in the stool. That test can be done at home and mailed into a lab. Dr. Anderson says both tests reduce colon cancer incidence and mortality by about 70%.
Either test is excellent. The important thing is to get screened.
Screening saved Walter Roussell's life. After he was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, he went through chemotherapy, radiation, and had a portion of his colon cut out. Today, he's been cancer-free for 6 years.
All the radiation and the chemotherapy pretty much cured me. So that helped me out a lot, knowing that what I went through was worth it.
The American Cancer Society estimates 140,000 people will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer in the U.S. this year. Some 50,000 Americans will die from it. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Health officials say 6 more influenza-related deaths were reported last week in San Diego County, bringing the total number of people killed this flu season to 308. This season has been especially severe. Last year, at this time, there were 72 deaths. San Diego officials are still urging vaccinations for everyone 6 months and older. A new study could help people worried about catching the flu on a plane. Turns out, where you sit makes a difference. AP reporter Kathy Young has the story.
When getting ready to board a flight, some frequent flyers go the extra mile to make sure they don't get sick.
Try to wash my hand quite often.
I try to have basically a diet rich in vitamin C.
People who do get sick after a trip usually blame it on the plane ride. But how likely is it to catch cold and flu germs in flight? A new study headed by a team of researchers, including Professor Vicki Hertzberg at Emory University, looked at the risk of catching respiratory germs on a plane.
Only the people that are seated one row in front of that passenger, one row behind the passenger, and then 2 seats on either side in the same row as that passenger are really in what I would call a perimeter of risk.
The study, funded by aircraft maker Boeing, sent a team on 10 transcontinental flights. They took air and surface samples before the flight and after they landed. Using computer models, the group found that risks vary and could depend on where people sat and how often they got up.
Approximately 40% of people in window seats get up during the flight, approximately 60% in middle seats, and approximately 80% of people seated in aisle seats get up and move about in flight.
Sitting and staying in your window seat may be your best bet at avoiding germs.
People who are in a window seat, don't have people exposed to that or aren't being exposed to other passengers passing back and forth in the aisle.
Dr. Jamie Hook, an outside infectious disease expert, says there are limitations, including the small size of the study. The study also notes there were few obviously sick people on those 10 flights. It also only looked at ways to spread diseases through droplets from coughing or sneezing and did not include more infectious illnesses.
It excludes some important pathogens, some important germs, like, for example, tuberculosis is not covered by this at all, or measles or varicella.
To reduce the chance of a fellow passenger infecting you, all agree that practicing good hygiene can be key.
Hand washing keeps coming up as the most important thing that we can do to stay healthy.
Extra precautions to allow passengers to sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. Kathy Young, Associated Press.
There's a new development in self-defense. Impact ability training empowers people with disabilities by teaching them abuse prevention and safety skills. From WGBH News in Boston, reporter Tina Martin explains how it all works.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
We're ready. Let me go.
Let me go.
I know. Run away, y'all.
Christine Leary is learning how to gouge someone in the eye and run.
Because I don't want anybody to hurt me.
Because you don't want anybody to hurt you?
No.
This is a self-defense class with a little bit of a twist. It's specially designed for people like Leary, who has Down syndrome.
It's kind of fun.
It's a fun class?
Yeah. Should I go? That's a lot of money.
The Impact Ability Training Program is part of the nonprofit Impact Boston. The goal is to empower people with disabilities and teach them abuse prevention and safety skills.
No. I'm not for sale.
I'm not for sale. Meg Stone is the program's director.
Every
national, state, or local study that has looked at sexual abuse of people with disabilities has found that people with disabilities, but particularly intellectual disabilities, are at significantly higher risk of experiencing sexual abuse.
At least 7 times more likely, according to unpublished data from the Justice Department, which was recently obtained by NPR. Stone says that's because they are more vulnerable.
They are too often taught to comply with the wishes of people without disabilities. You can run your disability service program much more efficiently if everyone eats the same breakfast and gets dressed in the way that you want them to and gets on the same van. But what that does is that it sends people with intellectual disabilities the message that their wants and their needs and their choices don't matter.
Please don't touch me. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to buy. Are you like mad or something? No, it's not you. It's just that I don't like to be touched. It's my body, my rules.
Mandy Doyle is one of the instructors at Impactability and says these classes take every individual into consideration.
Ways that people communicate differently, ways that their physical body might be different. So how can they access self-defense skills in a way that will work for them?
Let me go! Let me go!
You'll help.
And the scenarios they play out are very real.
When we do the role play scenarios, another instructor plays the characters, the perpetrator, and I stand right next to them and help them figure out what they're going to say, what they're going to do with their body.
Christine Leary felt pretty good at the end of class and says the most important part of preventing abuse is this.
Tell someone you trust.
It's just one of the many lessons the Impactability team hopes Leary and the rest of the class never have to use. In addition to the Boston area, Impactability runs programs in Chicago, Santa Fe, and New York, and has plans to expand to Columbus, Ohio in 2019.
You can read more about that program on WGBHnews.org.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. Tonight on the NewsHour, the suspect in a series of bombings in Austin blows himself up after being cornered by police. We'll have the latest coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Enjoy this last warm day of spring because it will feel like winter tomorrow. Julia Wyden has the full forecast.
After a cool day with passing showers, I think we're going to see some nicer weather for the weekend. Now, we do still have some brisk winds to get through, especially in the mountain and the desert regions. As we go into Thursday and Friday, we'll also have a couple of those showers still lingering around, but it'll all be worth it for that milder weekend ahead. Temperatures will get back to the mid and even upper 60s, a little bit warmer than what you would expect for this time of year, which will be a nice break after this cool week. Looking at satellite and radar, we have had plenty of clouds around, and of course those showers just nudging on through, mostly light to moderate rain with the occasional little bit of the heavier stuff coming on down. Onshore wind flow has been providing that wet weather all throughout Southern California, and I think we'll see that yet again as we head into Thursday and again for Friday potentially as well. But Friday will feature a little bit more in the way of those clouds breaking in, giving way to some sun through the afternoon. For tonight, we'll drop down to 50 degrees, partly cloudy skies looking around the region. We'll be at 39 in Oceanside, it's a little cooler farther off to the north. 33 in Ramona. Let's check in on what we have happening as we go through tomorrow. And again, experiencing that onshore flow of moisture, allowing those showers to develop. Meanwhile, farther up to the north, an area of low pressure will drop through Nevada, and that's going to bring some snow to that region and up into the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevadas. So just be aware if you are going to be traveling in that direction. San Diego County going to be in the low 60s in Oceanside and 62 degrees in San Diego City. Looking to the weekend, again, getting a little bit milder as the jet stream shifts a bit farther off to the north. Here is your extended forecast at the coast. Temperatures will be increasing through the weekend up to 67 on Sunday. Inland will be at 70 degrees during that same time frame. So again, expect temperatures to be on the rise. 36 degrees for Thursday in the mountains with some showers and some brisk winds. And in the deserts, we'll see those temperatures increasing up to 70 by Sunday. Back to you, Ebony.
If you're wary of the challenges of trying to get into Comic-Con, maybe you should give WonderCon a try. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando tells us more about Comic-Con's sister convention in Anaheim that starts Friday.
Silicone versus foam versus gelatin. That's not the next superhero film from Hollywood, but it is a panel on makeup effects that you can find this weekend at WonderCon. The pop culture convention takes place at the Anaheim Convention Center and is run by the organizers of Comic-Con International. It serves up the same geeky fun as Comic-Con, but on a smaller scale. On Saturday, you can find a Warner Brothers panel on Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One.
My name's Wade Watts. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego.
Plus gaming, cosplay, premiere screenings, and more than 900 exhibitors. Saturday badges are sold out, but full 3-day badges, as well as Friday or Sunday only, are still available online. No badges will be sold at the door. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
An Evening Edition story inspired a new documentary airing tomorrow night. The Homeless Chorus Speaks is the story of members of the Voice of Our City Choir. It's personal stories of how they became homeless and the struggles they face.
We were one paycheck away from literally being homeless, and I suffered a stroke, and I was living in the street.
Issue that got him there.
The movie is directed and produced by Susan Polish-Schutz. The Homeless Chorus Speaks airs on KPBS tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.